Good evening and welcome to the Reckoning Brothers podcast evening drinks edition. I am Scott in Los Angeles and I am here with my two extremely good friends. And if I were a woman, you would both hopefully be my lovers. Mark, Josh, how are you guys doing?
Just him. Just him.
I'm drunk enough right now to be your lover, Scott.
He really is.
Without
It's
me
kind
even
of
being a
scary.
woman?
He tried to grab my
That's-
nipples earlier.
That's a big story.
It's not. It's
succeeded.
true.
In rubbing your nipples
Yeah,
earlier.
welcome to Reckoning Brothers, everybody. I'm Mark. I am in. Josh and I are in Ohio. We're smack dab in the middle of the Midwest.
We need to have a sponsor right here. A sponsor.
I'm pretty sure legally you can't say that if they're not sponsoring, but hopefully Powers will sponsor us in the future. If we get any Powers watchers, they will be hopefully our second sponsor.
And Yogi Tea for the afternoon tea.
Incorrect. That's Barry's Irish breakfast tea for the afternoon tea. Incorrect. So, is that a slim? Are you snapping into a Slim Jim? And are you imagining that it is my penis? I'm pretty sure you are. So we've been messing around with figuring out how to do this topic wise, and it's my turn this week. We've been alternating who comes up with the topic. Mark, you did Doge last week, which I loved, but I wanted to talk about something more like evergreen and deep, and I don't know, just more kind of general. So I'm going to start with a question. I know what your answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask you anyways. What do you think first principles, thinking from first principles means? Just take a guess.
Thinking from first principles means not making the assumption about not making assumptions about what other people are doing.
That is a part of it. So, first principles thinking is a method of understanding, solving problems by breaking them down to their most fundamental truths, the building blocks of an idea, and reasoning up from there. So rather than basing your opinion on an analogy or some heuristic or conventional wisdom or just some kind of assumption that you've inherited, right? It
Or
involves
or
something you've been taught. Yeah, something you've been told, something that you've been assuming for years. You base the process basically goes like this. You break down your complex problems into basic elements that are verifiably true. So the most verifiably true element of an argument, all right, you examine each of those elements separately to understand the nature of those arguments, and you build a solution from these fundamental truths, right? So my good friend Claude brought up as an example Elon Musk.
Hold on.
The way that
Claude is AI.
Claude is an
ChatGPT.
AI. It's an Anthropic's AI. So Elon Musk is famous for doing this. So when he applies this type of thinking to electric vehicles, space travel, things like that, he thought in the sense of okay, why are these batteries so expensive? Why is this energy so expensive? Thinking from first principles helped him, be able to design new batteries for Tesla, design those chopsticks that catch rockets, things like that are way more possible when you can break down things to first principles.
That's it, like a little baby.
It's almost like thinking like you're a little fucking baby, right? Right?
Its arms go out and it catches it like a little baby.
That's not exactly how I was thinking of it, but yeah, kind of. Okay, Mark, do you remember when we were first met, roughly maybe a year or so afterwards? Things get fuzzy. I don't know. I drink and I smoke a lot of weed, but I was definitely more to like the left than I am now. Not really, but kind of. I still had a little bit of my.
You really were. Yeah,
I still had a little bit of my. Unlike the two of you that came out of the womb wearing like little suits and going to CPAC conventions when you were a year and a half years old, I went through a
on my chest at 2 years old.
You absolutely
did. You can't get away with calling me that. You can't get away with calling me Alex P. Keaton because I watched Dr. King get assassinated. I watched Bobby get assassinated.
What were you, 2?
He watched it on repeat
Yeah.
last week. That's what that's what he was saying.
You know how old I am, and I don't want to talk about that.
When did Dr. King get assassinated?
When I was 9 years old. It was not 2.
You're not that old.
I am that old.
He's that old.
This really flies in the face of all the jokes you've been making about Mark being old. You just
Yeah, I mean, he's Methuselah.
he is Methuselah. 20 some odd years ago, Mark, I was under the impression that most Republicans didn't care about things like kids in the inner city, right? I remember having a conversation with you about this, right? And you said more or less, I care about people from the inner city. I just think that the Democratic solutions to everything is fucking stupid. And here's why. And you were probably the first person that ever mentioned things like, like how welfare actually hurts the inner city, and incentives and stuff like that, stuff that, I've learned and talked about ad nauseum since then. The reason I bring that up in first principles is sometimes I think when we get so far down into the weeds and we're talking about things like Doge and things like that, we're so far disconnected from some lefty that might still think things like, oh, Republicans just don't care about the inner city. A lot of kids think that, right? It's fucking stupid, but kids think that. And what helped me was that simple Mark just, oh no, I care, and here's why. And I never heard it before. Right? And I think when we get so far down in there, we just forget about those things. So first principles and backing up and thinking about things from the 30,000 foot view again, I think is super important so that young people like me when I was 20 can have this experience like I had with Mark. And I would love to hear more Mark in that frame of mind, right? And talking about these bigger picture issues and helping idiot kids like me at 20 years old break these things down by saying those simple basic facts like I do care about the inner city. What do you think?
And I just want to say that I had no idea that that's what you were going to that's what we were going to be talking about, and thank you for the question. And you may recall, and yeah, it was a long time ago. It was 2 decades ago. I think if I'm remembering correctly, what I expanded on when in this in the beginning of these conversations that we were having is that, even I'm guilty of this. I think we all are at some point, and we can get into that later. Liberals and conservatives, or libertarians and conservatives, people in the center or the center left or the center right, even the progressive left, and hardcore conservatives, I think can all agree that homelessness is homelessness hurts people, and we should try to fix it. And I think we all agree on that. I think everybody agrees on that. And and I think what I explained is that since we all share the same goals, then the obvious problem is what happens is we disagree on how best to achieve those goals. And I think that when you completely disregard somebody else for their opinions on what they think will best address or best fix the problem that we all want to fix, no matter what it is, whether it's the environment, whether it's endless wars, whether it's the economy. Most people really strive and are and agree that these are all great goals to have. It's just a question of how best to get there. So that's how our conversation started, I think. Am I correct?
That was about it. Yeah. It was about it. And then you went into details about things like incentive structures and how that works and how pouring money into the welfare system and the incentivization of, having more kids and all that kind of shit.
The incentivization for, the whole notion of incentivization. And it boils, and first principle, basic economic facts. The basic economic fact of the matter is whatever you subsidize, you get more of. and whatever you tax, you get less of. So when we've talked about this before, if you tax work, savings, investment, families, entrepreneurship, if you tax those things, now obviously we need taxes because we have things that we have to pay for, and
Yeah.
so as a foundation, and we could all agree that yes, we need to pay taxes. We have stuff we need to pay for, but taxing whatever you tax, you still get less of, and whatever you subsidize, you always get more of. So when you reward things and you incentivize things that you don't want, you're going to get more of it. And I think it's axiomatically true that homelessness and a lot of other things that are detrimental to society and our culture have gotten worse with the progressive idea of throwing money at it.
Agreed 100%. What would you now you said homelessness. What would be the first principles way of looking at homelessness? I'll say I view homelessness as mainly two things: drug addiction and mental illness. Those two causes. I don't know if we can break it down
Oh,
further than that, but that's my first principles way of understanding.
yeah, and the phony narrative that you get from way too many people is that that a lot of, or most of, or a large percentage of homeless people are just people down on their luck that got fired from their job. They couldn't afford their rent payments. They got kicked out, and then out they're living in the streets. Every statistic you can, I'm not going to bother looking them up now. 60% of homeless people are addicted to drugs or have mental health problems. It's at least that's a
Mhm.
conservative estimate.
I'm
So if
sure
you
it's
wanted
probably
to
way
come up
more.
with, yeah, well, I think it's way more, and I think anybody that's ever been on the ground that's gone to like you're very close to where it's a big problem, and I've been
I
to
see
places
homeless
where
every single day of my life, every single day.
We are very close to where it's a big problem.
we are, yeah,
There's a 200-acre park behind us that is
yeah,
filled with it, and I could
and
show you some pictures that would make you gasp.
and that's a small town, and that's a fairly small town in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
Which, by the way, Scott, I'll send you some so you can edit in.
so I think liberals
will
and
do.
libertarians, I think liberals and libertarians and conservatives and progressives can all agree that we want to solve the homeless problem. Well, my problem, where I jump ship, is with the taglines I keep hearing from the left, which are, "It's a housing problem. All we need is housing. All we need to do is give them free housing. All we need to do is give them a place to go where they can live their life." No. So if you don't have any job skills and you've got mental health problems and you've got addiction problems, you need help. I've been saying for years that yes, forcibly removing homeless people from the street and putting them into a facility into a facility that can treat them for mental health problems that they may have and treat them for addiction should always be a first step before you do anything else. You're not doing anybody any favor. You're not doing a drug addict or a mentally challenged person any favors by giving them a free place to live. It,
No,
you're not helping anybody by doing that. Am I wrong?
I think you're not wrong at all. And I think another mistake the libertarians make, I call myself a libertarian, but they make this mistake of thinking that just letting people do drugs on the street is a good thing. We ran the experiment in San Francisco. Turns out it doesn't work out. If
Didn't
you
that happen in Oregon, where
The nation of Chaz.
there's
That
people
was
on the street
that was
that
in
the
Seattle, but
nation of
yeah.
Chaz,
No, yeah, no.
the proud people of Chaz.
What's the phrase the left likes to use? We live in a society. You have to have public health. You have to have public safety.
Yeah,
You have to have it. You can't have people that aren't that aren't that aren't receiving any medication for whatever health problems, mental health, that they have. You can't let it's the opposite of compassion to allow people to live on the street in perpetuity. That's wrong. And it's not and the singular and it's not an answer to just say housing for them. People that are homeless that have mental health problems need to be helped. They need and if they have addiction problems, they need to be in rehab. And after rehab and after they get help for their after they get mental help, they should get job training. People should be a homeless, destitute person should have, and one would think society would have enough heart and enough soul to say this person deserves to have treatment for his health, for his addiction, and then put in some kind of a jobs program so that they can be a contributing member of society. I'm told that the left tells me that that's cruel. So the left tells me that no court or courts shouldn't make laws that forcibly remove people off the streets. And I can't
You need to
imagine.
tell the left to shut the fuck up, which you do often on Twitter and Facebook and here.
I've never
But
said that in my whole life.
They should get a ticket.
Nixon never.
That's the thing. There's somebody that is 200 yards away from my house, and there is a park, and there's a port. What are you doing? There's a porta
Are you
potty.
showing off Josh's hidden beer?
It's behind the books.
Okay, there's a porta potty 200 yards away from my house. It's in a park, and there's a van that parks there and stays there all the time. And you can see a walker outside the van. And this van has been there for 6-8 months. So this person is living there constantly, using the porta potty and going back into their van.
Are they disabled? Do you think?
I don't know, but it's disturbing because I don't want to go into the park because of it.
You get used to it after a while when
they're
around.
You don't want to go into the park with your children.
It doesn't mean that you want it.
You don't want to go into.
But there's obviously either a motivational issue, an elderly issue, or a mental health issue,
or an addiction issue.
They're all four of those.
Well, the left's counter argument to the left's counter argument to like my philosophy that that homeless people need help at every level at which their life is dysfunctional, right? Whatever level of your life that's dysfunctional, you deserve help for. And it may be that some people have so many mental health problems that they may never get to a point where they're going to be in a government subsidized or government paid for apartment for the rest of their life. They may end up being in a healthcare facility for the rest of their life. And there may be addicts that they go through a rehab program and succeed and stay clean. I mean, we've all known people who've struggled with this, who've struggled with addiction, and they relapse and they go back, they go back to being dysfunctional. The left's counter argument to my point that everybody deserves help and should get it is, well, conservatives always want to cut programs for homeless people, and they always want to cut programs for. That's not true. That is not true. It's never been true. It's a canard. What conservatives
It's
and
always been
libertarians
both. Well, I mean, California alone spends like $42,000 a year per homeless person on homeless outreach programs. Would you say? I just want to know if you guys agree with me here. We're thinking from first principles. Solution to homeless. We've got money. Goal number one should be you get people help, you get them treatment, you try to train them for a job so they can succeed in society in some fashion, right? Some people aren't going to be able to do that. from they're just gonna fuck up. They're not gonna. They're too fucked. And I would argue this might be a little lefty of me, but those people should be treated with compassion. However, they should have to go through these motions. There should be a system in place, a well thought out, competent system in place that determines, okay, they've tried, right? They're just not able to do it. Do we give them housing? Do they have to stay at a group home or a mental hospital or something like that? Or some kind of drug care treatment center indefinitely? I mean, I would think that would probably be the way to go. That would be the most compassionate way,
That's a really good
realistic
question.
way
That's
to
a
look
really
at
good
things.
question. And no matter what answer you give, I can assure you that the far left progressive response is going to be, oh, that's a concentration camp.
Yeah, because
Right?
those people get their spiritual meaning through arguing and on Twitter and shit, and they're not to be taken seriously as adults, and they can all go fuck themselves and
It's a
big, huge
fact
fucking
that some
pile of
people are
idiots.
so. Now, it's a fact that some people suffer from a mental illness that is so severe that yes, they're going. Yes, they should be in a facility that can that a that is going to take care of them very possibly for the rest of their life. That's a fact,
Yeah,
right? Now you could, yeah, no, that's just an absolute fact. We do have those facilities. John Hinckley
we
Jr.
do.
shot the president of the United States, was found not guilty by reason of insanity, and spent most of the rest of his life in St. Elizabeth's mental health hospital. Right.
Do you
So
think
we have this.
somehow like Jodie Foster hooked up with him at some point? I'd like to think, I don't know why, but I would just like to think like, you know what? 10 years into it, she's just like, you know what? I'm gonna fuck that dude. And they just
I
got
don't.
together and hooked up.
I don't know. John Hinckley
I think
Jr.
it
was
happened.
like, no, I just don't see him like, no, he's an incel, dude. I don't think John Hinckley Jr. like,
He's the
he's an
original
incel.
incel. Can I
He's the
bring up
original incel.
one more concept? I just want to bring up these two concepts. We'll bring this up. And these are just things that I wanted to implant in both of your minds and also cement further into my mind is this is how I want to approach these topics. This is how it feels natural to me. I love breaking things down, man. I love just thinking it from a basic level. And yes, I took an edible before we started recording. Second concept I want to bring up really quick. I know,
Yes.
Mark, you know what this is. The definition of second and third order consequences. You know what second and third order consequences are? What would be your definition? He put on his glasses. You know what's up.
Second and third quarter. No, that's drink number 7 and drink number 8, and then puking.
That is amazingly accurate. That's basically it. So they're the indirect effects that ripple outwards from any initial action or decision, right?
Yeah.
So, example of a positive second order consequence: you start exercising every day. Second order consequences: you might sleep better and you might have more energy when you're at work, right? And then your third
Yeah.
order consequence would be after getting better sleep and energy from the exercise, you might perform better at work, leading to promotion and certain lifestyle changes that come from that. Right. So that's a
That's,
second
Where
and
does the
third order.
soreness come in?
I don't know. That's really dark compared to like drink 7 and 8 and then puking.
That's a
Like
second
you're
order
like,
consequence. Yeah.
no,
But
yeah,
that's
no.
that's another important thing that I think it is to think about on every issue all the time, every day, always, because the drift, I feel it coming to myself all the time. Like, right. Like I'll be one to get on the Doge train, for instance, and be like, oh yeah, everything's great. Everything's great. And then I'll be like, well, I should listen to some people that aren't just hardcore super leftist idiots, but people that have legitimate concerns. And I listen to them. Like Andy Mills did a special. He's great. I don't know if you know who Andy Mills is, but
Andy
he's
Mills,
fantastic.
and yeah, and I think that, and I've been saying that my whole life. You have to listen to all. You have to listen to all opinions. There's no such thing as a bad opinion, right? There's just differing opinions. And let's not get into semantics as in, no, well, Nazism is a bad opinion. I'm not talking about that. Like, no.
Yeah. yeah, evil exists in the world, but there are really bad things. But for the most
I
part,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I read a story
no,
today.
go ahead.
Uh, a man was released from a mental facility today, even though he killed somebody and extracted his brain and ate part of his brain and ate his eyeballs. So he
I
axed
saw
him to
that story.
death. You saw that story?
Yeah, and he was
Yeah, no, no.
I'll let you
He,
finish it.
he axed them to death and then ate them. And people were like, "Well, no, he's received the help, so he should get this release." And I'm like, he axed somebody to death and ate their eyeballs.
On that note, we're going to eat
It,
dinner soon.
yeah, no, delicious, delicious. Yeah, I've never had eyeballs. They might be good though. In his defense, just playing devil's advocate here. But anyways, thanks guys. I appreciate you talking to me about these subjects, and I hope you get value out of thinking about things from first principles like I do. Because I'm telling you, man, I tell myself that every day. Actually, what I really tell myself every day, pretty much first thing in the morning, is Scott, you're a piece of shit. And I think everybody should do that because that's going to help keep your ego in check and help force you to think about things from first principles so you don't end up being fucking stupid or disconnected or an asshole or an idiot,
Or dis
hopefully,
or dis or
hopefully,
dysfunctional. Or dysfunctional.
or dysfunctional.
Have a good weekend. See
You
you
as
in the
well.
morning.